Hello, my name is Codemaster Jamal, and welcome to a devlog for my 2D top-down turn-based action RPG, Dragon Ball Z Ultimate End. Yes, I know I typically make devlogs about virtual monsters, but this time I'm doing something a little bit different. Typically, when it comes to devlogs, I try my best to focus around my 3D monster collecting MMORPG virtual monsters. However, today I'm going to be making a special episode dedicated to a 2D RPG that I released in April of 2021. This game is actually a remake of a game I played online back in my early childhood. My cousins used to play it all the time, and I played the game at my aunt's house for an entire summer. Oddly enough, it was a fan game, and since the age of 8, I haven't been able to find it since. I just assumed that the creator of the game took it down. I believe it was a Flash game, but I could be wrong. In the fan game, you could play as Future Trunks, and your mission was to collect all 7 Dragon Balls from bosses that were scattered all over the map. I never managed to beat any of the bosses, and I always ended up losing to Frieza. I thought it was really cool. At the time, I didn't even know who Future Trunks was, but because of that, he ended up being my favorite character in Dragon Ball Z even until this day. I just thought he was the coolest character of all time, and the fact that he could time travel is even crazier. The main point of making this game was to prove to all of my watchers, family, and friends that I could actually make games and that I wasn't bluffing. The problem I've had in life is that I never finished anything. I never finished college. I've been working on a card game since 2013 that I never finished, and there's just a long list of things that I never finished. Granted, sometime recently I began to figure out exactly why I couldn't finish it, but that will be a story for some other time. As of 2024, I'm going to be turning things around. Nowadays, I finish things. The first being this turn-based RPG game that I created. I called it Ultimate End because this was the name of the game that I played as a young child. I can officially say that I finished the game. Granted, I didn't make any of the graphics myself, and there's still a few things I want to tweak on it. There's still a few things I could touch up, and granted, I didn't spend a lot of time working on this game actually. Back in 2021, I actually spent one entire month working on this game, but I could have spent an entire year polishing this game and making sure it was actually very, very well before I released it to other people and I let other people play it. I probably spent altogether 2, maybe 3, maybe 2.5 months working on this game entirely. If I spent more time on the game, it could be a lot better. This video is just to let people know that I've updated the game and I have fixed a number of bugs within the code. There's more things that I want to discuss in this video, so for now, I will be concluding the intro for this devlog. Once again, you can support the channel by purchasing merch off of our merch store or by donating through the donation page. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more videos. This is a devlog for my 2D turn-based RPG Dragon Ball Z Ultimate End. Dragon Ball is a hit anime that centers around a youth by the name of Son Goku. His dream is to become the greatest martial artist. He travels around the world with his friend Bulma in search of the Dragon Balls. The Dragon Balls are 7 magical spears that, when collected, releases a powerful dragon that will grant them their wish. Throughout the series, Goku faces stronger and stronger opponents and eventually travels to other places, including outer space. When I started building this game, I based a lot of it on what I remember from the fan game that was made in my childhood. At the time, my memory was more vivid than it is today, because I finally released all of that creativity that I've held back since childhood. To be honest, this game is basically the reason why I got into text-based role-playing and making games in general. A lot of my earlier projects were just attempts at recreating this game from childhood. Now that I've finally done it, I can put it to rest. The actual fan game that this was based on is much more difficult, at least that's what I can remember. I remember someone telling me that the developer for the game eventually got hired to work on Supersonic Warriors, which is a game for the Game Boy Advance. I'm not entirely sure what happened to it, but the basic premise of the game is that you play as Future Trunks and you travel the world to collect all 7 Dragon Balls. If you collect all of the Dragon Balls, you win the game. Granted, you didn't have to play as Future Trunks, you could play as a bunch of other characters, but my cousin decided to use Future Trunks. More importantly, you could actually fight against other players while online. This is back when American Online was very popular, and it seemed like American Online was everybody's internet service provider. It's safe to say that I was a very big fan of Dragon Ball Z. It's been a huge inspiration on me my entire life. In fact, I still have a VHS of a movie called The World's Strongest. Hold on a second. So as you guys see, I have this VHS here of the movie. I think this is the first movie that they released here in America, The World's Strongest. And in case you guys have never seen, okay, I know it's kind of glaring to have it. The movie, it's called The World's Strongest. So in case you guys have never seen an actual VHS, they put it in backwards, but yeah. There you go. this is what they look like. We actually used to be able to rent these at places like Blockbuster. We had Blockbuster, Hollywood Video. There are a few different movie rental places. This is before Netflix. I think Netflix was actually like a place where you can rent DVDs at first, and then it became an online streaming service. So Netflix really changed the game on this. Yeah, this is actual VHS. I believe you can still get these from libraries. If you have a VHS player, I haven't actually tested the movie in a while. I don't want to reveal too much, but basically it has this like film here. This makes me realize I'm getting old, basically. It's been a long time since, you know, movies have gone to VHS. A lot of Disney movies are still like this. These days, I think I'm just going to collect a lot of them because they still work. Now, to begin, I built the game using the Unity game engine. Unity is known for producing some of the previous decade's best 2D games. Unity is actually a very good 2D engine, and I managed to speed up the process for the game by using sprites from previous games. This is why I released the game for free, and I will not be accepting payments for the game due to a number of copyright reasons. I'm literally using someone else's artwork to make my game. In this case, I actually don't have permission to do that, but there's a lot of fan games out there. But still, this whole project was just to show that, yeah, I can actually make video games. Reason why Virtual Monster is taking me so long is because I'm doing everything by myself. In order to make the game, I used a number of sprites from sprite databases and previous Dragon Ball games. The sprites I used from games were from some of my favorite games, such as the Legacy of Goku series, Boo's Fury, Legendary Super Warriors, and a few other Dragon Ball games. Some of the sprites are sprites I kept on my photo bucket from back when I used to be a part of a forum called Dragon Ball Z Vortex. The DBZ Vortex, they turned it into a Discord thing. They kept getting shut down and they kept getting under attack. It's really crazy. It was a really cool spriting forum and people showed off their sprite comics. At the time, I didn't know that these pictures were called pixel art, so I thought it was really cool. In terms of the attacks, I'm actually using all white sprites and I'm using code to color them in. There's actually a component on the sprite itself that allows you to change the color, and basically I'm just using code to change the color. Nothing too special, nothing too technical. I think it does cut down on load time, and I think it does help the game run faster because I'm using one sprite, but I can make that sprite different colors just using code, and that's all it is basically. Instead of having it white, I can make it blue, green, yellow, purple. It doesn't really matter, which is why I really like the Unity game engine, because if I was doing it some other way, I would have to recolor the sprites myself, and that could take a lot of time. It's not that I can't do it, it's just that it can take a lot of time. Originally, when I started the game, I wanted to make the game with only 5 scripts, but this idea was thrown out very quickly as the game progressed. Generally, the idea was to make the game with as few scripts as possible, which is what led to an error later on with the game. One of the huge problems I had before was the game over screen. It would work when I loaded up the scene. However, let's say if you lost a fight and you went to game over, you couldn't go back to the scene basically. You can go back to where you started and you had to restart the game completely over again. Okay, so I fixed that problem, and the problem with that was that I was using the game manager within that scene. I basically wrote some functions for quitting the game and continuing the game. That's through the game manager, and this was the problem I had before because I basically didn't want to use any more. I wanted to do as few scripts as possible, and that was the problem. I didn't want to make an additional script. So that's why it ended up being like that. So if I just made an additional script and basically just called the 2 functions I wrote within the game manager to do those 2 functions, basically, I wouldn't have that problem, because basically when you load into the scene, that game manager is destroyed because it's an instance, and then the game manager from the previous scene is actually loaded into that scene. Basically, that button no longer has that reference because that game object got destroyed. So that's why it doesn't work. So the way around it is that I would just create a script, and basically you can have that script reference the game manager. The script doesn't get deleted when the scene is loaded. Only the game manager that's in that scene gets deleted. What ends up happening is that the script just calls a function on the game manager. Eventually, I had to give up on this idea, but I was able to finish the game with only 5 scenes. The game switches through different states in which I have divided into multiple scenes. So I couldn't finish the game with 5 scripts, but I managed to do it with 5 scenes. So I'm not entirely sure if this completes my coding challenge, but it was worth a shot. To be honest, when I started this project, I thought it would be a lot simpler, but I ended up spending an entire month on this project, perhaps even a month and a half. I officially released the game sometime around April 20th, 2021. And yes, when it came out, it had a number of errors and bugs that I needed to fix. Some of the bosses walking around were literally unbeatable. Altogether, I probably spent 2 months working on the game. When I started this project, I thought it would be something I could finish in a week or even 2 weeks because I already had the graphics. For the graphics, I just ripped them from a website website called the Spriter's Resource. Personally, when I started getting into game development, I started out collecting Dragon Ball Z pictures, which led me to find several sprites and animated GIFs on the internet. I used to collect them on a floppy disk. Me and my friends would often share out pictures with each other and compare them. Eventually, I got into modifying the sprites. A lot of these GIFs were similar sprites that were found in the original Dragon Ball Z Ultimate End, so I knew that the game was around somewhere, but I never found the link again. After a while, I just assumed that the developer took it down, and it was such a letdown as a child. I thought these sprites were so cool, and ever since the 6th grade, I had become obsessed with creating my own game. This is where it started. It started with an obsession with making my own version of Dragon Ball Z Ultimate End, or at least recreating the game. Although with no experience in game design, no experience in programming, no experience in computer graphics, I was utterly hopeless. Fortunately, I managed to take another computer science course in the 8th grade, and that's when I got into making websites with HTML. A further step in the right direction, but not entirely, as there was nothing I could really do with it. In terms of stats, unfortunately, I don't have any stats to report from GameJolt, as I just put the game back up on GameJolt. I actually took down the links for downloading the game after the Unity runtime fee was announced. To be honest, I'm in a lot of debt right now, which is keeping me from developing Virtual Monsters. I panicked when the fee was announced because I wasn't sure how the fee was going to be handled. Even now, I'm still walking on eggshells. So I basically took down that game from GameJolt out of panic. I got more views. I had better stats on GameJolt than I did both itch.io and Newgrounds. It's just unfortunate because I can't show you guys the stats. Altogether, I have roughly 10,000 plays. I actually got more browser plays and downloads on GameJolt, which is why I feel really bad that I can't report these statistics with you. Although we still have information from itch.io and Newgrounds. On Newgrounds, my game has a 2.85 out of 5 rating, which is almost 3 out of 5 stars. So I think that's really cool. Thank you for everyone that voted on my game, especially when it wasn't entirely complete. It has over 1,500 views, which is very cool, and 60 favorites. On itch, I have roughly 3,500 views for the game, and it was roughly 1,200 browser plays. Overall, I still had a very good run for my game on 3 different websites. To myself, I think my game did very well. I also managed to get more followers and more subscribers because of the game. I also started to put HTML5 games on my website, so you can also play this game on my site. I'm also making free games available for anyone on the site, regardless if you have an account or not. I think I'm going to enjoy making HTML5 games. They didn't work too well on the website, but for now, it's just an interesting way of creating traffic for the website. In terms of updates, I had an issue with talking to NPCs once you got out of combat. I managed to fix that, and I also put a level cap on power levels. Now, here's an interesting theory related to computer science and Dragon Ball. I'm starting to understand why their scouters broke during the anime. It's not that their scouters couldn't detect the power levels, but the scouter itself is a machine, and like any other machine, it needs to get programmed. In C#, when I first started the game, I had this ridiculous idea of having large power levels in game. I started out using a long data type, which can store higher numbers than an int value. The only problem with this is that the slider function in Unity uses an int value, and its highest value is actually 2,147,483,647. Because, you know, in Dragon Ball, their power levels can skyrocket. It can get to the millions and possibly billions or even trillions, which is why at some point it's smart that they stop using power levels to determine fights. At some point, the numbers get so high that it cannot be calculated, and hence that's why the scouters broke. The scouter itself is using an int value, when instead of using an int value, you should probably use a long value, which can hold a larger number, essentially. And the problem with the program is that half the time they don't actually expect people to use numbers that large, but those data types are there just in case people want to use them. For whatever reason, I had a similar issue when playtesting the game. Your power level could get so high that it would just cause issues with the Unity software. Simply put, I don't think that's what they intended with their software, but it's fine. I realized I was just really obsessed with recreating this game from my youth. And granted, when I created the game in the first place, I was using the ulong data type, which doesn't have a negative value, which caused more issues. And this is why Kid Buu was unbeatable, because you literally couldn't kill him. If you did more than a certain amount of damage, it wouldn't be negative, it would change to something else. Otherwise, it's still not zero. I made this mistake due to a slight dyslexia with numbers that I have. This switched up the values of the long data type with the ulong data type. I read the table wrong, and this one issue caused a domino effect of issues. Even now, I probably shouldn't be using the long data type, but I still had the ambition of these drastically large power levels. For the bosses in game, I actually got the power levels that they used in the show and matched majority of them to their power levels. Some of them I had to guess, and others I had to scale back for the purpose of making the game. To make the game safe for everyone, I put a level cap at the maximum value of the int data type. This makes the game fair and it makes the game have an ending. Eventually, I want to make the AI stronger and make them have higher chances of transforming in the middle of battle. I also want to lower the price of certain items in the shop to make it easier for everyone. The game can go on, but I needed to make an end game for the game to make it fun. I still need to work on this project. It needs a bit of tuning and fixing here or there. At one point, I would like to give the player the ability to have different save slots and to play the game with different characters, but this is a story for another time. For now, I would like to conclude this video. If you like watching this video, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more game development content. If you would like me to make videos on certain topics, please make sure to leave a comment below. Thank you for watching. Keep making games. Till next time, this is Codemaster Jamal, and I'm signing out.